The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey, greetings from Minneapolis, coming to your cordless, everybody. It's 1 minute past 10 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States and a minute past 6 p.m. on the West Coast. And here in the Central Time Zone, it's 9:01 p.m. Central Time. I'm Jim Peters. Welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 286, believe it or not. Oh, and I forgot to mention the date. It's Thursday night, October 23rd. I had to check. Yeah. So, how you doing? Yeah, we got it going on. No, we do. We got a guest tonight. Fantastic guest. Michael Pack is here. He's a award-winning documentary filmmaker. He has a film coming out on PBS. Yes, that's right. Public Broadcasting on Monday night, November 10th, at 10 p.m. Same time at all time zones. The film is called The Last 600 Meters, and it's about two battles of the Iraq War in 2004, told by the guys who were actually in the film fighting. They actually narrated. It's pretty cool. And we had a fantastic talk with him. We taped that this afternoon. A very interesting guy. He's worked in public broadcasting most of his life, but he is not a liberal. And we talk about that a little bit. So that's interesting how that works too. Also, the fact that public broadcasting is basically defunded. Now, if you think it's going to go away, absolutely not. Matter of fact, I have heard that NPR basically has already made up all the money the government is not paying them anymore. So their budget is not going to change. They've already got donations. I think the government was making up 17% of their budget, something like that, and they raised the money. So, and good for them. That's fine. As long as the taxpayers aren't paying for it, they can do whatever they want. I'm cool with it. Also, and we talked with Michael about this too, the concept of public broadcasting, 40, 50 years ago, it was maybe a welcome respite. I don't know if it was necessary, but it was welcome because there were only literally 5 television networks. That's including PBS. Excuse me. Today, you get your video from the internet right here, like you're looking at it right now. And zillions of people are broadcasting all over the place, and I'm one of zillions. And I don't know if we need public broadcasting anymore. I don't think we do. The public's doing plenty of broadcasting. We got it going on, as they say. So that's kind of well. But anyway, stick around for this. That's going to be fantastic to talk with them. And it's we don't do Fridays here. I don't think we're going to be running a rerun tomorrow night. We usually do that on Fridays, but tomorrow night we're not going to. I'm not going to tell you why, but I don't think we're going to be able to do that. And we're coming back on Monday, and who knows who the guest is going to be. I've been out for 9 days, basically, with the flu. I basically just came back yesterday for all practical purposes. We did 2 shows during that time because I thought, let's get back on the horse. And yeah, so much for that. And Kimberly, our booker, she was sick too. So we're basically just getting our shit back together here. But we'll have something booked next week. I don't know if we're on Thursday. I was trying to put together a Halloween show, but I don't know if that's going to work out. So because the usual suspects, none of them can make it. So we'll see. We'll figure it out. But at any rate, we got Michael Pack coming up in just a few seconds here. And then after that, part 2, Gymcast. And we got a lot of interesting stuff on the Gymcast tonight. So stick around for that too. So anyway, like I said, 12 seconds, Michael Pack. Here we go. Joining us from his office in Chevy Chase, Maryland, Michael Pack, the producer and director of The Last 600 Meters. He's also the president of Manifold Productions and Palladium Pictures. Michael, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Great to be with you, Jim.
Now, my very first question here is, why did you decide to do this particular subject? Your movies. Let me set this up again. Your movies about the two battles in the Iraq War, and it's premiering on PBS on November 10th, the eve of Veterans Day. So, yeah, what prompted you to actually take this on?
Well, I have made over 15 films that have been nationally broadcast on PBS. The last one, which some of your listeners and viewers might know, was called Created Equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words, about Justice Clarence Thomas. But we've done over 15. This one is sort of unique in my experience, and it's been many years in the making. It's, as you said earlier, it's about the battles of Fallujah and Najaf in Iraq in 2004. The first battle of Fallujah, Najaf, and then the second battle of Fallujah. But we shot the interviews for the film in 2006, 2 years after the battle, when the people that we interviewed could still remember well what happened in the battles. They were still the ages they were. Those that were very young were still very young. And then we finished the film a few years later, and its principal funder is the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. So we were very confident that PBS would broadcast it. And PBS initially declined. They said it was too pro-military. And we appealed to them year after year for many years. And just recently, the president of PBS, I think very courageously, reversed those decisions and decided to broadcast it. And now we're honored to be on the day before Veterans Day, as you just said, November 10th at 10 p.m., and also the 250th birthday of the Marine Corps. And these are largely, but not exclusively, Marine battles.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to get right into this. I'm reading about you. Now, we set this up fairly quickly, only a couple days ago, so I didn't have a lot. And not only that, unfortunately, I got a screener of the movie, but I didn't have get a chance to watch it all the way through. But I'm under the impression, reading about you, that and I don't want to miscategorize you here, that your politics are generally conservative. Is that what you would say? Yeah,
my politics are conservative. I feel the movie is without politics, that it just tells the ground truth, and you could appreciate it whatever your politics, which is why I think PBS is willing to broadcast it.
Yeah, and also you had for a while, 2 or 3 years, you were the vice president of programming for not PBS, but the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was, in fact, the senior vice president in charge of programming from 2003 to 2006.
So I find it kind of interesting that they would say no to you.
You would think I would have some pull.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did. I mean, it was, in a way, I think, Jim, this is the perfect time for it. Maybe it was too soon. In 2008, which is when they first looked at it, it was everyone was caught up in the politics of the war. Who did you support, Bush or not, or were you for or against it? And they couldn't see the film except through that political lens. But I think now you can see it as we intended. I mean, we tell the story as if they're battle stories, like Gettysburg or Iwo Jima, a straightforward account from the point of view of the people who were there, corporals and sergeants, but up to the one-star generals that were in the field. So now I think you can see it's a film without ideology. And actually, they might have been clouded by their personal opinions of me. And you're right, I am myself politically conservative, even though I try to keep the politics out of the film. So maybe all that stuff made it hard back in 2008. But now I think you can see the film for what it should be.
So, Michael, let's watch the trailer, okay? And I want to apologize to everybody watching. Normally, we play these trailers directly off of our servers, but I couldn't do that today for various technical reasons. So we're going to play this off of YouTube. So here we go. Hold on.
It was almost as though there was a boogeyman out there.
We were facing a lot more enemy than we had the capability to deal with.
They dug trenches, they fortified houses. They were ready.
We wanted to go. We were just waiting on the edge of a knife. When are we going to get to go?
The order is seize the city.
RPGs, small arms fire from everywhere.
I told him that I wanted to go, and he looked at me and said, "Sergeant, you're gonna die."
The destruction is just horrible.
The hardest thing about fighting this enemy is they're not afraid to die. If they're not afraid to die, then how do you fight them?
Ramp's going down!
Be prepared to start at one end of the city and fight your way through to the other end.
There's firing going on. There are grenades being thrown in the house.
It became hand-to-hand fighting. It was so close.
2 selfless Marines run across this kill zone 4 times to pull Marines out of there.
I wasn't worried about, getting shot or getting wounded. I was worried about the guys to my left and right.
You always want to reassure these men that they've done their duty, because that memory is seared into their soul. They never forget it. None of us do.
Foreign policy, I don't make it. I just deliver the last 600 meters of it.
That's pretty incredible.
I think so.
Were you on site for the actual camera shooting? Were you there?
I conducted the interviews, but the way we made the film is we found footage shot by way more heroic people than me, combat cameramen and photojournalists, commercial photojournalists. And then we went and found the people that were in the footage. So the people are talking about what you're seeing on camera. I've never been to Iraq, actually. And I really do want to celebrate the courage of the people who took the pictures that we're using. And in some cases, they are, I think, works of art on top of everything else.
Especially in such a chaotic environment, too. Did you draw any conclusions interviewing these guys? I mean, this is almost stereotypical, but I do have to ask it. What drives these guys? What drives them?
I think, for one thing, they don't like to talk about this kind of stuff. You probably know that. And they hate being called heroic or courageous. They always want to talk about the other guy. At one level, at every infantry battle, it's people are thinking about their buddies to the left and the right. There's always that. And they talk about that in the film. But then when you talk about the people that, lieutenants, captains, majors, and up, they're still thinking about loading their troops and holding them together. But I think they also felt that they were representing, doing what the American people wanted. They feel the military is a noble profession, and what they're doing is noble, whether this particular moment is or isn't. So there's all that. I mean, a lot of them, after they came back, had themselves mirroring the American population, conflicting views about what happened in Iraq. And I think a lot of them were saddened to see America leave and it going back to a chaotic place. But perhaps not as bad as when Saddam Hussein was there.
Yeah. And also, have you given any thought, I'm sure you have, about my late brother-in-law says we humans are 2 weeks out of the trees. And why are we shooting each other? Are we accomplishing anything?
Well, that there is always that, but a comment inaccurately attributed to Plato is that, but it's a true comment anyway, is that only the dead will see the end of war, and that is true. Maybe it would be good for there, as John Lennon said, for there to be no war, but there will be war. I mean, there's been war for millennia, more than millennia.
Right.
And there'll be war for the next couple of millennia. And I hope there's not a global nuclear war, but there'll be wars like Fallujah and Najaf, like Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, right now, the wars in Gaza and Ukraine largely resemble the war in Iraq. And the veterans of the battles that I depict, Fallujah and Najaf, they would have no trouble recognizing what is going on in Ukraine and Gaza.
Michael, do you think humans are hardwired to do this sort of thing?
Yeah, I do. I think, part of it has to do with, these are deep questions way beyond my pay grade, but a lot of it has to do also with the nature of evil.
I want to hear what you have to say. So,
well, a lot of it has to do with what you think about evil, the nature of evil. I don't really think, I think it's a permanent feature of humanity. I don't think, like Jean-Jacques Rousseau, that men are naturally good, and that if we simply got rid of all the strictures on us, we would go back to being loving, harmonious creatures. I think there's a strong trait of evil in us, of pulling away from the good. And that'll happen, and that'll involve us in war forever. And that's why I think it's important for America to have a strong defense and protect herself. You can't assume that evil will vanish or ever be vanquished. For a while, we thought after the end of the Cold War that war was over, and it turned out not to be so.
I've asked a lot of people on the show this question because this comes up regularly, and I don't know if it's because of me or what, but do you think evil is like an intrinsic property, or is it just colossal human stupidity most of the time?
I think that evil is a turning away from God. That is my own religious view of it. I would never impose it on anyone else. I think the real reality is God and the goodness of the world, and that when people turn away from that is evil. And I think that when we were given free will, that enabled us to choose good as well as evil. And some people will always turn away from the good and choose evil. There's no avoiding that, from Cain and Abel to today.
Yeah, it's almost like we were given the choice to see what we do, It's like
Indeed.
My personal opinion anyway. So so you were the vice president, like you said, senior vice president of the program for the Corporation of Public Broadcasting. And these are, and I don't want to overly dwell on this because I don't think it's that important, but I do want to ask you, these are generally considered kind of liberal environments. How did you fit in there personally? Did you feel any sort of, I don't know, tension or working there? Or?
Yeah, I felt some tension. When I came in, there had been a conservative chairman, Ken Tomlinson, and he felt he had a mission to bring balance into public broadcasting. I've spent my entire life in public broadcasting. I've made over 15 films that have been nationally broadcast, going back many decades. I think I believe that they do a lot of great work, and I believe that it needs more balance. And my mission was to bring balance to public broadcasting. I don't actually think I succeeded. I was only there for 3 years.
Did Ken? Michael? Did Ken hire you directly? Were you his report? His report?
The then president of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Bob Coonrod, hired me, but he and Ken had worked together at the Voice of America, actually, and they together came up with the idea of hiring me. And in my contract, it was asserted that I would come up with big initiatives that would change public broadcasting. And I tried. We did something called America at a Crossroads, which was came out in, I think, 2005 or 6. And it looked at post 9/11 issues. And it was supposed to do it from a variety of points of view. And we brought people in public broadcasting, like, say, Frank Gaffney and Richard Pearl, who had never been there before. And it was supposed to be like 80% liberal, 20% on the right instead of 95.5 or 99.1.
Yeah.
And it went on the air and it was successful, but public broadcasting, for whatever reason, did not pursue that. And two initiatives of Ken's, this is more detail than you want maybe, were to bring Tucker Carlson to public broadcasting, and he had a show that he produced with the PBS station here in DC, WIDA, and to bring the Wall Street Journal editorial report into public broadcasting. And if those two shows were on the air at the time President Trump was thinking about defunding it, they might have been able to make a very compelling argument. But in the end, public broadcasting rejected all that and went back to its normal ways. And I think it's a sad thing for public broadcasting that that's the way it played out. And I hope, look, I'm very grateful that they put on my films. They were very supportive of the Clarence Thomas film. The president of PBS herself initiated getting this film on the air. And I hope that it's a sign that they are going to reach out. And I'm grateful for it.
Well, public broadcasting, at least for the time being, has been defunded, but it's obviously not going to go away. As a matter of fact, I don't know, did I get this correctly, that the NPR actually made up most of its loss of public government funds from donations? I guess they're not going to be hurting, if I'm correct, right?
I wouldn't be surprised. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, where I worked, has been defunded, and they were the arm that dealt with federal funding of public broadcasting.
Right.
I'm told that it's about 15% of funding. So people have had to take a 15% cut, which is a significant cut, but many broadcasting institutions have been cut by 15%. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go out of existence. I hope it means they get rid of the redundancy and keep the good parts. So I don't think either PBS or NPR is going to go out of business. I think some smaller stations will go out of business, but that will not have that much effect in the long run, I think, on programming.
Yeah, I worked for a public broadcasting station that went out of business. I understand it. Yeah, the smaller stations, they do struggle. And also, if we're going to make a distinction between public and nonprofit broadcasting, I mean, it's a maybe a semantic distinction. I don't know, but my personal feeling is I don't know if we need public broadcasting anymore, because 50 years ago, when there were only 5 television networks, it was pretty obvious, get your word out. But now with the ubiquitous media that we have with the internet, I don't know if it's necessary. But on the other hand, there's certainly nothing wrong with nonprofit broadcasting, which is what this is going to become. Correct?
I think that's right. I mean, they still are getting state funding, but that's right. It is essentially nonprofit broadcasting. And look, I am a big listener of NPR. I consider it pretty biased, but I also consider it high quality radio. And you're right, it's going to be supported by the kind of left of center foundations that love it and believe in it. And in America, that's fine. I think it would be useful if they weren't labeled public, if NPR advertised itself as what it was, which is a high quality left of center broadcasting operation. And I think it has a place in the American, media landscape.
Right. You and I have something in common, Michael, and that is, we've both. I've spent most of my life as a conservative working in liberal media.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
I understand how that works too. I found this really interesting in your bio. You were for about 6 months. You were the first Senate confirmed CEO of the U.S. Agency for Global Media, which includes the Voice of America and a couple of Radio Free Europe. Am I right about that? A couple of things.
Yes.
What was that like? What was running that like?
I was there for about 8 months. It was very challenging. This was the end of the first Trump administration. Look, I mean, I feel that I share the view of many people on the right that there's a vast administrative state, that people who have the civil service and other protected positions that feel they can do whatever they want, and their job is not to follow the goals and plans of the President of the United States. And I think that represents a problem for America. And it was a problem for me. I mean, it was very hard to make any changes. I mean, everything was brought up in kind of legal battles and political battles and endless. And, simple things. I would do things like ask for a list of all of our contractors, and the people supposedly working for me would simply refuse to give it to myself and my team. So
well, I have to ask you, because of us sitting here in the trenches, we don't know this. When somebody does that under your charge, can you fire them?
No, they cannot fire them. I mean, when I first came into that job, there were 4 legacy politicals that were running the 5 networks under the umbrella of USAGM, and I replaced them. And people called 4 out of an organization of 4,000, and people called it, left-wing media called it a massacre, a Friday night massacre. And they were politicals, but with the career people, you really cannot fire them. I mean, unless they're stealing or doing something over, simply for not following your directive. You really little that you can do.
You've been in the arts all your life, and I bet you've had no trouble. You've probably lost a zillion jobs. I have. I've been fired at least a dozen times. I've lost track. You know, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're right. You know, there's even though a lot of people in the world of culture think they're open-minded, they often are not at all.
Yeah. So now I have a list here because I'm forgive me for dwelling on this, but I'm really curious. The U.S. Agency for Global Media is the Voice of America, the Office of Cuba Broadcasting, Radio Free Asia, Middle East Broadcasting Networks, and Radio Free Europe, or Radio Liberty, whatever you want to call it. So do you think most of those things are still necessary? Not a loaded question. I actually want to know. I don't know.
Well, I've written 2 pieces about it. I ask your listeners to go and find them. They're on our website, which is palladiumpictures.com, which is where our new productions are. Our older productions, including the last 600 meters, are on our older website, manifoldproductions.com. So I wrote these 2 pieces, one in the Wall Street Journal and one in the Federalist. Look, I think that it's still an important mission for the U.S. to defend its values abroad. I think that is a proper role of the government. I think we have to fight a sea of propaganda from China, from Russia, from Iran, from our enemies. I just feel that the institutions that have evolved, like the ones you listed, can no longer do that. And we need to rebuild that capacity from the ground up.
And we tied their hands? Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, I think the people there have just become unresponsive. They are, I mean, when I was there, as I gave you that little example, but they simply, they won't follow what the president wants. They feel they know better. And they've developed also an entitlement mentality. Their skills are not sharp. The programming is suffering. I mean, there are a whole host of problems that really can't be solved on a reform basis. And not only that, to zoom out a bit, we really need to rethink the whole thing. Like this name, Radio Free Europe. I mean, it came because we were broadcasting into the former Soviet Union, but now a lot of those countries, Poland, the Czech Republic, they're free. I mean, they're hungry even, they have problems. So what should be the role of international broadcasting in this new world? These are institutions created, in the case of the Voice of America, during World War II, and in the case of most of the others during the Cold War. We need to reevaluate and rethink. And information delivery has changed radically. I mean, of course, all these organizations are on the internet as well as radio and television, but we really need to rethink the whole thing in a different way, and we need visionaries to do that in light of America's changing foreign policy goals.
I'm just gonna spitball some questions here because you just reminded me of this too. What do you think about AI in the motion picture business? I mean, we've been doing stories on this here. I just saw a thing the other day where they think that AI has already replaced 200,000 people in traditional Hollywood. Well, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's one of the reports I read. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Do you have any thoughts at all?
Well, I am, in general, kind of bullish on AI. I feel new technologies always have a disruptive influence. They replace people. Usually new jobs are also created. For the classic, the car getting rid of stables and buggy whips, but more people getting employed. Every time there's a new technology, people say, that was true in the past, but it's not true now. But that now, it's always true for that now, whatever the now is. So I am generally positive about AI. I think it's worth making sure that it's under our control and that it doesn't do things we don't want. It's also important to deal with it on on a foreign policy level in terms of what our enemies are, how they're using it and countering that. In terms of Hollywood, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the Hollywood industry as it exists, so watching it being disrupted doesn't hugely bother me. So I'm not sure. We'll see how it all plays out. In my own case, I've tried to use a little AI in our productions. We have AI animation in the 2 films we did with the Wall Street Journal opinion section. So we'll see. It could be good, it could be bad. It's not like it's destroying Hollywood's golden age. Hollywood has plenty of problems.
That's true. I just made a prediction just on this show last night about the fact that I think that within 2 years, you're going to see the first feature-length film generated by one single person sitting at a keyboard typing. And I think it will be a watershed moment, kind of like talkies were in 1927. I think that's going to happen. Do you think that's true, or do you see that?
I think you can imagine a whole film created wholly by AI. But the thing about it is, with any creative product, AI really, I think film, drama is a high end of the human spirit. I don't believe AI will ever be able to do it at a high end. I think it can assist that one guy at a keyboard, and if he's a genius, it'll be a great film. If he's an idiot, it'll be a bad film.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's possible for AI to mirror, I don't know, John Ford or Howard Hawks or.
I was talking about that myself. Everyone thought when this first started that the first place you'd use it is screenwriting, and AI turns out to be a terrible screenwriter. It's like the worst thing it can do, So right now the writer is still supreme. I mean, so you're right. Somebody might be able to generate scenes and backgrounds sitting at a keyboard, but actually coming up with a good plot, I think you're gonna need a person to do that. At least that's what it seems like right now.
It's more than the plot. I think it's the plot, yes, and then the vision and the aesthetic. I mean, I don't believe that at the point that AI can do that will be the same point where computers can do absolutely everything. I mean, so that's another boundary into the future to cross. I'm not sure it'll ever be crossed, but it won't be crossed in the near future. So I don't worry about it, and I don't worry about it replacing me in my work either. So yeah, I mean, Hollywood, it's actors are very jealous of preserving their, extremely high salaries. Who can blame them, and not be replaced by AI? And Hollywood studio executives are anxious to cut costs and not deal with unions, and who could blame them too? And we'll see. But I don't super worry about it. I mean, I'd like to. I've had many problems with Hollywood, and especially, their extreme bias against conservatives and conservative ideas that you alluded to earlier, and their creeping anti-Americanism, their suspicion of the things that America represents in the world. When Hollywood was at its peak in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, they were very pro-American, and the people running the studios were largely Jewish immigrants from Europe who were grateful for America and grateful for the freedom it provided. And Hollywood movies represented America not without its downside, warts and all, but in a way that inspired others, and I think helped us win the Cold War. I mean, people in places like the Soviet Union wanted to be like John Wayne, and that, along with rock and roll, I think, we're part of the cultural changes, cultural attacks that helped us win the Cold War. And Hollywood has not been like that in a long time.
Michael, have you done any non-documentary or basically fiction films yourself?
I began my career doing a short drama, 30-minute drama, and my film about Admiral Rickover, which I did a few years ago, called Rickover, The Birth of Nuclear Power, is half drama and half documentary. We have Tim Blake Nelson, who is a great actor, playing Admiral Rickover. He was in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And many other films, Ballad of Buster Scruggs. So that was half and half. I would aspire to do one. We have some scripts that we've written that I'd like to do.
How did you get attracted to doing documentaries specifically then? What along the line made you focus on that?
Well, I originally did want to make feature films, but the fact is, it's hard to have in Hollywood, you have to sacrifice the control of them. And for one thing, it's it's a greasy pole to climb, and you don't have any control over the way it's made until you're at the very top. Whereas I can make documentaries, and I've made over 15, and they all reflect my values and my aesthetic values, and I'm proud of them all. So it was a way to make films that I believed in, that reflected a view of the world that I wanted to communicate, which is why I went into film in the first place. So I couldn't really do that in Hollywood. I could hope eventually I'd be like Steven Spielberg, but the odds were against it, not just because of my politics, but that too. So I did where I had a chance for creative freedom, and it's been great for me in that way.
Well, it's interesting because I understand you don't consider yourself part of Hollywood, but based on your pedigree, your experience, and everything you've put out, I think the public would think, I don't know if they'd say you're a part of Hollywood, but you're certainly part of the established film profession in the United States. So it's interesting.
Well, that's true. That is true.
But you would. Well, my point is, it's interesting that you would kind of consider yourself outside of Hollywood, but I don't know if the general public would.
They might not, but it's what you said earlier, Jim, about being on the conservative in a liberal environment. You're always on the margins, however you want to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's your modus operandi here? When you just when you decided you're going to do this film on these 2 Iraq battles, where do you start? How do you go about this? Did you decide to? I mean, did you check out whether there was camera footage from the battles, or what's the decision points?
Well, when we first began to make this film, actually, we thought it would be about technology and warfare. And it looked like the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan were going to be high-tech battles. At the very beginning of the war in Afghanistan, there was the scenes of the special forces working with the Northern Alliance to rapidly topple the Taliban with kind of high-tech air support. But as I researched it, I was really moved by the stories of these battles and the young men, and it's mainly men, there's one woman in the film, young men who are fighting almost hand to hand to win these battles and the things we were asking them to do. And I was taken by their story, and I thought it was an important story to tell. So once I wanted to tell that story, then I looked for the footage out there that was good, both from the military footage, combat camera and footage, and the stuff of commercial footage. And when I found footage, I then went back to the people in the footage and interviewed them.
Was it hard to find them?
Yes, it took a long time and it was challenging.
Yeah. Did you come to any conclusions regarding the technology of ground warfare or hand-to-hand combat? Has it changed much in the 40 years? Or
yeah, I think that the technology is really important, and even in the battles that we describe, in the battles of First and I think Second Battle of Fallujah, there was a lot of close air support, providing cover for our troops with extremely well-targeted, precision-guided munitions. In Najaf, which is in the south, it was a Shiite insurgency, and the insurgents were squeezed into a smaller and smaller space, and they could bomb their safe houses and hit the house and not the ones near there that might have civilians in it. So the technology was compelling. But in the case of Najaf, the first part of the battle took place in a very bizarre kind of medieval cemetery, and it largely underground. And one of the people we interviewed describes a squad member of his encountering an insurgent in the tunnel, but in these tunnels beneath the cemetery, and there was no room for them to draw a rifle, and they ended up fighting hand to hand with their bayonets. A knife fight, could have been 500 years earlier.
Yeah.
So, and there was no close air support when you're way underground. So, yeah, the technology is important, but it's the courage and commitment and skills of these young, largely Marines.
And Michael, I'm glad you brought this up, because I don't know if the public really knows the difference between the Sunnis and the Shiites. Can you explain that?
I'm not really the expert either, but they have a different view of Islam. they're descended from a different line from the Prophet Muhammad. But the Shiites, really, the center of Shiite Islam politically is Iran, and the center of Sunni Islam, at least politically, is Saudi Arabia, and they are opposed to each other. But when we were in Iraq, they were more opposed to us than they were to each other.
Oh, interesting.
So Fallujah is in the north, dealing with a Sunni insurgency, largely Al Qaeda, and in the south is the Shiite insurgency. So we're fighting both, and we're also trying to make deals with the political leaders of these groups. So it's a vastly complicated military space.
Yeah, I'm under the impression, and I don't want to pin you down on this either, that's not my point here, that in the current Gaza-Israeli conflict with Hamas, it seems like one of the reasons the Trump administration was successful in negotiating the ceasefire is that it seems like everyone in the region is sick of Iran. Do you get the impression, or did you get the impression studying for the film, putting the film together?
Well, the film took place in 2004, so they weren't sick enough yet.
Yeah,
but I think they are sick of Iran, and not only that, but I mean, this is a different subject. But I think that President Trump was able to make this deal also because of the Israeli military victories. Diplomatic victory depends on military victory, and the Israelis, with their help, were able to take out a lot of Iranian proxies. Hamas is an Iranian proxy, Hezbollah is an Iranian proxy in Lebanon, and then they were able to bomb the Iranian facilities first, soften it up, and then we came in and took them out. And then Israel even bombed Qatar. And so at the end of the day, they wanted peace. And so I think both military victory, and that's right, they're sick of Iran. And I think I think President Trump has been brilliant in having the emphasis on economic development. And I think all the countries surrounding Israel have gotten the message that economic development is important, and that it's either economic development or perpetual war with Israel. And I think they're picking economic development. And President Trump has been very articulate in giving them that choice.
It seems like the Saudis, first of all, the Saudis realize they're not going to have the oil money forever. And they've kind of come to the conclusion they like money.
Yeah, that's right.
They like being rich. And so, what else can we do?
What else can they do?
We're going to turn Gaza into a resort. That's what we're going to do. It's amazing. The other thing you brought up about technology and talking about taking out the nuclear facilities in Iraq, it's amazing when you look back at World War II, what it's been, 80 years or something like that. You just drop bombs willy-nilly. You're just dropping bombs. They're completely destroying cities. When most of the cities in Europe were at least like 55% wrecked. It was just unbelievable. And now we have the ability to actually drop these bombs and literally pinpoint a house.
That's right.
It's really amazing. It's really incredible.
It is true. It's very different from the carpet bombing of World War II and even Vietnam. That's right. It is very different. I mean, the firebombing of Tokyo or the bombing of Dresden, very, very different.
Yeah. Michael, it's been a real pleasure talking with you. I've enjoyed
Great talking to you. Very, very wide-ranging discussion, Jim.
So yes. So let's recap here. Your film is going to be on PBS at 10 p.m. I assume that's 10 p.m. Eastern, right?
10 p.m. the same time across the country.
Oh, okay. On November 10th. And it's called The Last 600 Meters. We never got a chance to talk about this. I wanted to ask you about the Clarence Thomas film too. And maybe will you come back?
Anytime. Invite me back. I'm happy to talk about that.
I'd like to do that. I would. Thank you,
Absolutely. Michael. Thank you, Jim. Good talking to you.
Alrighty, welcome to the Jimcast for October 23rd. This is the part of the program where I give you all the news that you haven't seen anywhere. We don't talk about a lot about, like, for example, I mean, today, the big story, one of the big stories, and it's an intriguing story too, is about this NBA gambling scandal. But there's actually two parts to that story. One involves betting on games, and the other involves NBA players that were involved in rigged poker games. Uh, but believe it or not, I'm not going to talk about it, even though I'm talking about it. But I'm not going to talk about it because you can read about it anywhere. And I have nothing unusual to add. And that's the thing. If I have something unusual to add, I would bring it up, but I don't. Like, for example, I want to bring this up too because last night we were going through the show yesterday for shorts, and we got to the story about the White House renovation they're tearing down the East Wing for this ballroom, and I brought up the fact that, which I don't think most people know, I haven't seen covered in the press anywhere, about the fact that in 48 to 50, Harry Truman gutted the whole building. The only, and this is the part I realized I forgot to mention this after I was watching the section to make the shorts. They even took out the floors. I mean, there's pictures. You can see them. They're online. There's pictures of the inside of this giant shell of this building. All that was left were the four outside walls. And if I'm right, I think they even replaced the roof, I think. That was it, the four walls. There's nothing original in there. Nothing. It's all been replaced. I mean, they've replaced it pretty much to plan. The current Lincoln bedroom is where the old Lincoln bedroom was, as far as I know anyway. That was the idea. But it's not the real Lincoln bedroom. It's been replaced. So, people go on, oh, they're destroying history. They've already destroyed history. It's been gone for 70 years, for Christ's sake. Anyway, so that's what we do here. And I want to reference something that Michael Pack was talking about in the interview you just heard, about the fact that there's a story out today about that Netflix is going all in on AI to help them create content. And like Michael and I were talking about it, like I mentioned last night, when this all AI thing started in Hollywood, everyone thought, oh my God, we can use AI to write stories. And it turns out that's absolutely the worst thing that AI is for. AI can't write stories because AI is stupid. So there was I thought about this while I was preparing this. There was a program in the 1990s. It was, believe it or not, it was a DOS program. It wasn't even Windows. It was a DOS program called the Humor Processor. And what it was very simple. It was two databases that had thousands and thousands of phrases in them, two of them, and it would pick a phrase from each of the two databases and match them up. That's what it was. And some of this stuff was unbelievably funny. It was a computer program to help people write jokes. That's what it was. And you could use it to either write one side and scan for the other, or you could hit the random button and it will take two things and just put them together. Some of the stuff was incredibly funny, but the problem is some of it isn't. The computer had no way of knowing, and AI is just faking its personality. It doesn't have any personality. You can't tell what's really interesting and what isn't. It can fake that, and it does a pretty good job faking it, but it's still a fake. You can't ask AI. ChatGPT is not going to write Die Hard. It's not going to happen. And they've already discovered this, that when they ask the AI to write scenes, and if they write from scratch, they're unbelievably bad. The dialogue's bad, the pacing's bad. Now they can use AI to clean up somebody else's writing. That does work, but from scratch, no, not going to happen. And I don't think it's going to happen for quite a while. It'll be really interesting to see what happens in this area. But I think it's going to be a long time before AI is truly creative in a masterful sense. And what you need for movies is writing. And as I was saying to Michael, and we talked about last night, I think within the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to see the first feature-length film created by somebody sitting at a keyboard. But that's actually the key there. that person will write the plot. That person is going to actually write the script for the movie. The movie itself will be created by AI, and all the characters, the actors and all that sort of stuff. The AI will create all of that, but the movie itself will be written by a human. So, and also today, the CEO of the News Corporation, Robert Thompson, and they, if you don't know, you know who they are. If you don't, because they own Fox News, they own the Wall Street Journal, they own the New York Post, they own Dow Jones, a few other things. They own newspapers in Australia, which is where Rupert Murdoch, the owner of that company, or the majority owner, started. He is saying that that the AI firms aren't paying enough for news content. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I don't quite know. I'm an expert at copyright law in one narrow area, and that's music. And it took me 20 years to learn about this. It's so complicated, it's unbelievable. I can't even start. I mean, it took me 20 years to learn it, copyright law and music, in terms of who has the rights to what. So that's my narrow area. So I don't really know how it applies to news per se, so I'm extrapolating. So I'm not an expert in this area per se. But as an example, I read 4 hours of news to prepare for the 30 minutes that I'm doing tonight on our Gymcast. And I read over the course of a week, not a day, but a week, I check out about 100 different news sources. I have about half a dozen, 6 to 10 I go to every day. The other 90 or so I check in at about once a week. I check in. Although also a lot of them are blogs that don't even update every day anyway. Excuse me. I don't know the difference between ChatGPT reading a bunch of news on the internet and regurgitating it to you than me doing that, which is what I'm doing. I mean, I don't write any of the news stories that I talk about here. I report on them, and usually, like I said, I try to add my original two bits when I think something's that I know is missing. So I add a little flavor or spice, but basically, yeah, I read a bunch of news stories and I then regurgitate them to you and add a little bit. That's the idea. Now, if you ask me, that's also what Copilot and ChatGPT do too. So I don't understand how reading those news stories is a copyright infringement. I don't get that. Now, if they're going to read a news story and regurgitate a vast majority of a story whole, well, yeah, that's copyright infringement. That is, but that's usually not what. I mean, if I go to Copilot and ask Copilot a story about some news story or a question, it will not do that. Usually, I've never seen it do that before. Not to mention the fact regular, ordinary human writers are getting more and more bold about clipping parts of news stories out and putting them in their own news stories. Now, technically, the idea that's fair use because you need to comment on something, you need to actually show it. So if you're commenting on a news story, I mean, what I'm doing here, this is not copy because I'm talking. But if you were copying and pasting something, you can do that as long as you're doing it specifically to comment on it. That's considered fair use. But I don't really understand how, per se, the AI programs are violating copyright simply by reading news and regurgitating it. I don't. Now, it's probably a pretty good idea. I mean, this Thompson guy, the CEO of News Corporation, he says they've struck deals. He said, for example, they struck a $250 million deal with OpenAI to use the news from their sources. And that's probably not a bad idea in terms of business. At least you're making people happy. You aren't going to get sued. And no, the idea of business is not to make people happy. It's to make a profit. But still, it does cover your butt. There's no doubt about that. But if stuck in a court of law, I don't know. I really don't know how the court would rule. I really don't. I don't quite see it. It's an interesting question. I'm sure somebody at some point, somebody's going to push this to the court and say, well, tell me, are we violating copyright? And it would not surprise me if the court said no. It wouldn't. I mean, then there's also the business aspect. I mean, Google got this for years with Google News about the fact people are saying, well, you're scraping our content. And, but then they said, Google said, well, okay, let's try this. Let's try removing that stuff. And then the links, the links to the people's stories, these companies' stories completely dried up. So, that little excerpt there, 2 sentences, are you screwing something up? Are you infringing on somebody's rights by taking that? Especially when if it's not there, their business actually goes down. I mean, man, I tell you, this is what I've learned after 70 years of living. Some business people are unbelievably stupid. Unbelievably stupid. It's like not everybody running a business is a genius. My God. So over at CBS News, which we should point out is perennially in third place, Barry Weiss has taken over there. And if you read the mainstream newspaper news, not only just CBS, but I don't think they're reporting on this externally, but other news sources are saying it's a complete debacle so far. Apparently, that's not really true. She has some detractors. Her story is that she worked at the opinion page for the New York Times, and they basically pushed her out over. It was over a story by Tom Cotton, the senator, regarding Israel, and of course, they're anti-Israel over there because of course they are, and she fought the newsroom, and basically she lost, even though she's the boss. And so she left and she started something called the Free Press on Substack, and it became wildly successful. They have 15 million paid subscribers, and it's a very, very good publication, and it's worth paying for. It is. I can't remember. I pay for so many things I can't remember if I pay for it or not. But I don't scam anybody. It's just whether I read the free portion or not. But it's very, very, very worthy. So CBS turned around and bought the Free Press and installed Barry Weiss as the editor-in-chief of CBS News. And, this is like a American success story. I don't have to tell you. Woman gets pushed out of her job, starts her own thing, ends up wildly rich, and then running this giant operation. Well, people at CBS News were not happy with this. They weren't. But it was reported in the New York Post today that it's really that unhappiness is being exaggerated. People are saying the only people who are really unhappy with it are the very young reporters who just came out of college, who are all ultra progressive because their professors told them to be, and the old guard, the really old people who want Walter Cronkite back, and that's never going to happen. And somebody said, and of course you'd think logic would dictate this, but like I said, not every business is brilliant. They've been in third place for years and years. Both the CBS Evening News and the morning show, their perennial also ran. And this thing they got on for the CBS Evening News right now, the person who designed this and okayed it should be fired. It's unbelievably. They got 2 guys, Dubois and Dickerson, I think their names are. First of all, they have no chemistry among themselves whatsoever, none. And then it's just 2 white dudes. Well, no, I don't know. I don't know if Dubois is white. He might be Hispanic. I'm not sure. But they got 2 dudes there, basically like reading the. It's like you might as well. I could do it. It's like it's nothing. And this is going to happen too. We are going to have AI robots, or not robots, renditions of anchormen reading the news, because it's not that hard. It's literally the copy is written. Once again, you don't want AI writing the copy, but can AI read the news? Absolutely. That's what pointed out even on the show, and I can't remember who did it, about the fact that there's already podcasts with AI interviewers. They're audio only right now, but video will come along very shortly. And I'm not too scared because I'm kind of, I don't know if you noticed, I'm kind of a weirdo. So the idea of I do not think right now at the present time there's an AI program that can come up with questions in an interview that are better than mine. I do not think that. And you can call me arrogant, whatever. I've been doing this for a little while. I know my shtick. But they're competent. I mean, I've seen and heard these interviews where they're just as good as your average Joe Blow interviewer, you know. So those two guys, they're going to be replaced by AI shortly. Well, I guess really now they're talking about Nora O'Donnell coming back, and she's very easy on the eyes. I gotta say, I like looking at her. It's the only reason I tuned in. Their news, I think their news is trash, but yeah, she kind of she, as the men in my generation would say, she kind of gets the job done. So whatever. But yeah, those two guys, they're going to be replaced by AI like in 15 minutes. It's like, oh my God. Okay, so on to the UFO news, which I know you want to hear. So, okay. Oh, Jesus, what is this? Now I don't even know what the hell I linked to. Oh, yeah, this is this story. I actually made a mistake here in my outline. So there's a Norwegian astronomer. What was her name? Hold on. It's a she. Well, I'm not going to tell you because I'm wasting your time. There's a Norwegian astronomer who took old astronomical photos from telescopes pre-1957. Sputnik was launched by Russia, by the Soviet Union, on October 4th, 1957. Before that day, there was nothing in orbit around the Earth that was man-made. That was the very first object. And it just occurred to me today, that's within my lifetime, and that's scary as hell. It's like, really? Okay. Alrighty. That's good. Good to know. I'm old. Oh, but at any rate, so she took these pictures that were done by telescopes, observatories in the 1950s, pre-1957, and she found anomalous objects in the pictures that shouldn't have been there. And the thing is, logic dictates, well, they're not ours because we had nothing in orbit before October 4th, 1957. And so what are they? And they've pretty much ruled out all natural objects, and somebody said this might be the second, the first UFO coming was the 2017 article in the New York Times about the U.S. government tracking UFOs. This might be the second one because there's no other explanation for this. And then her and her partner, this paper they wrote on this has been successfully peer reviewed, which in the science circles is very important. So that means, a committee of their peers looked at it and said their research was solid. So there doesn't seem to be a lot of wiggle room here. These things that they've put on that are on these photos they're not natural and they're not from humans. So what are they? Okay, so now you go to the present day now, and article above the norm news by David Freeman, a really great writer, and he says that we have a problem that there's too much space junk in orbit around the Earth. A European Space Agency, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being clean, anything above 1 being not clean, that we're at a 4 right now, and basically we're at the point of no return, where the only way we're going to solve this problem was by going up there and collecting trash, and nobody wants to spend the money or technology to do that. So they track, when I say they, I'm talking about both NASA and the European Space Agency. They track everything in orbit about the size of a large bolt, or 2 centimeter, about half an inch, half an inch cubed. Anything that bigger is tracked. And the problem right now is there's literally, you got crap running into each other. And also, now that SpaceX is figuring out how to relatively cheaply launch satellites, we're putting satellites up at an unbelievable rate. And the Starlink thing that Elon Musk is doing to broadcast internet to rural area, or anybody who wants it, for $300 out of the air. Those satellites are basically about the size of a softball, or not much bigger than a Rubik's Cube. They're small, and they launch about 160 at a time right now. That's what they're doing. And there's going to be thousands of them. It's mostly partly because they have to be redundant. They're not depending on you. Anything can happen to a satellite. Get hit by a little microscopic meteorite, all sorts of stuff knock this stuff out. So they put up thousands of them already, all in orbit. So Earth's orbit is crammed with crap, and now this stuff is starting to run into each other. And they're saying that very shortly it might be unsafe to put up anything. That basically you'd have to assume that anything launched is going to end up being destroyed. And also supposedly, you never think about this, insurance rates for satellite launches are going up exorbitantly for this very reason, because more and more satellites, or at least they're assuming in the future, are going to be disabled by running into space junk or other stuff. So that's going on. I know. Yeah, that thing is, I know you got your problems in your life, whatever, marriage, kids, bills, whatever. I know you're probably not thinking about space junk. So I think about that for you. That's what I do. That's why I'm here. I have a purpose. Oh, man. So, and speaking of stuff in orbit, now this isn't in orbit. We've talked about this, the 3I Atlas thing, this supposed comet that entered the solar system. It's the third confirmed object to enter the solar system from outside. The first one was this thing called Oumuamua, that was 2017, and it was about 1,500 feet long. And there are people who still think it might have been an extraterrestrial artificial object. There's never been any proof or confirmation. Now, and I've been telling you that Avi Loeb, the chief astronomer at Harvard University, he thinks this thing, 3I Atlas, might also be. But something happened really dramatic yesterday. It slowed down. It appeared to break. Not only that, it's had a weird, very, like comets of a tail, and what the tail of a comet is, it's ice on the comet that's evaporating from the solar wind of the sun. And that's the solar wind is basically just photons from the sun that hit shit. I mean, so we don't feel it because we have an atmosphere. But that's what comet tail normally is. Not only did this thing slow down, it was described as actually breaking. The tail reversed directions, which shouldn't happen at all. I mean, the astronomers are just shocked by this. I mean, this is really unusual behavior. And all of a sudden people are saying, oh my God, Loeb might be right. This might not be natural. It might actually be what they're seeing as a tail might actually be rocket braking. It's mind-blowing, really. So this thing slowed down on the middle of nowhere. It shouldn't. The thing about Oumuamua that still is controversial is the fact it's sped up leaving the solar system, and it shouldn't have done that. Based on the slingshot effect of gravity, at least it shouldn't have done that as much as it did. It seemed to be under its own power, and now all of a sudden this thing does too. Yes, all of a sudden it seems like it's under its own power. It braked, and it shouldn't have braked. And this tail reversal shouldn't have happened. None of this stuff's ever happened before. And scientists said this just happened just yesterday. So this is going to be really interesting. This thing is going to be closest to the Earth on December 19th. And they're hoping people will get scientists and observatories will be able to get a good look at it then. But yeah, that's pretty weird. And speaking of weird, there's a guy in Britain who had to have surgery because he shoved a ping pong ball up his butt. It had to be surgically removed. And they asked him why he did it. And he said he was inebriated, he was drunk, and he saw a ping pong ball. And it just occurred, geez, I wonder what I could do with that. And that's what he did. Thought you'd want to know that. And finally, oh my God, the Koehler company, or is it pronounced Koehler? I think it's Koehler, excuse me. It's pronounced Koehler. They are now designing the toilet camera. This is a camera that goes in your toilet. And you're thinking, why do I want that, Jim? I'll tell you why you want that. You want that because apparently it has a legitimate purpose. It monitors your feces for like colonoscopy, like in a colonoscopy fashion for colorectal cancer and that sort of things. That actually it will visually dissect your feces to see if there's anything wrong with it, if there's anything wrong with you. Now, okay, that's weird enough, right? Okay, so here's the really weird part. Koehler will put this in your toilet, or you can buy it for $300. But to run the camera, you have to pay them. You have to pay them a $7 a month subscription. you have to, you're subscribing to the camera in your toilet. Got that? This is not like Netflix. Nowhere near that exciting. Really? Are we going to do everything by subscription? Is that what's going to happen? I mean, for Christ almighty, I just don't know. It's like stuff just amazes me. What do I know? Nothing. I want to thank Michael Pack for joining us today. That was a really interesting discussion. His movie, the last 600 meters, excuse me, is going to be on PBS on was that Tuesday? It's November 10th. I can't remember the day. At 10 p.m. local time everywhere. I guess they adjust that. So no matter what time zone you're in. So check that out. Fascinating guy. Him and I had more in common than I thought we were going to have. I enjoyed talking with him. I don't know who's going to be on next week. We're Kimberly, who books our show, helps me book the show. She was sick. I was sick. It's all up in the air. I was trying to put together on Thursday a Halloween show, but it looks like our usual panel, none of those guys can make it. So we'll see. I have an idea. We'll see how it works out. But yeah, so I don't know who's going to be on next week. But yeah, we'll do a show on Monday, no matter what. We got stuff going on. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I'm glad as hell I don't have the flu anymore. Oh my God, it's like, Jesus Christ. And then you wonder, I mean, I just turned 70. I wonder, is this how this ends? You get the flu and you never recover. Was that really? Seriously? My mother's 101, she's fine. I talked to her today. I'm going to go see her on Saturday. It's like, yeah, she's fine. She's out walking around, taking care of business. But it doesn't last forever, does it? Who knows? Anyway, thank you, Michael Pack. I want to thank you folks for watching and listening. Oh, by the way, speaking of listening, it took us like months, but we do have our audio podcast feed is back up and running. It's a day late. We post shows 1 day late in audio, but audio only. They're posted on Spreaker. They distribute the audio podcast. If you want to go to Spreaker.com, you'll find it there, but it's pretty much everywhere. So there's that too. I don't recommend it. I've been talked into the fact. My friends and people who watch the show say, it's really weird. There's only one camera, and we talk to people in their homes, but it is a video show, and it is because apparently I look pretty damn goofy or something. I don't know. Anyway, I want to thank you for watching and listening if you're doing that. Good night, Uncle Donnie, wherever you are, and good night to you wherever you may be. You guys have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday night. Take care, everybody.